All right, you guys aren't getting rid of me quite that easily. I would like to welcome to the stage our final guest this morning, U.S. Congressman Troy Carter. Come on out. Hello, hi.
Good to see you.
Thanks for being here.
How's everybody? Good.
I have to admit, I feel like we've been hanging out all weekend.
I'll tell you.
Because your Happy Mother's Day signs were all along the second line.
Oh,
New Orleans
wonderful.
yesterday.
Happy belated Mother's Day to all the wonderful mothers in the audience and beyond. So,
yes.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Thanks for being here. Congressman, under Governor John Bel Edwards, we saw Louisiana pledge net zero emissions by 2050. Things are a little different under Governor Jeff Landry, who talks more about balancing industry with the environment. Where do you want to see Louisiana headed?
I want to continue to see what Governor Edwards talked about. I want to do what the Biden-Harris administration talks about, making sure that we have cleaner, greener environment where people can have the opportunity to live. Now listen, they're not mutually exclusive. You don't have to be anti-industry to be pro-community, but you have to begin with community. You have to begin with healthy, safe communities that are free from emissions and toxins. And that requires all hands on deck. We don't have to be anti-business. We don't have to say that we don't like industry. Industry has to recognize that its number one and most significant commodity is its people. And you got to keep them healthy. Not only the people that work for you, but the people that live in the community in close proximity. And so that's where we as policymakers and as leaders on either side of the ledger have to come in and recognize that there's room for everyone as long as we know that we begin with making sure that we have safe economies of scale, safe communities, clean, green jobs, opportunities. And then we work from there. We know that energy is important, and Louisiana is an energy producing state. Now, how do we transform into making it safer? And every day should be a part of that transition to making sure that we are having fewer and fewer emittance into the air, that we have a smaller carbon footprint constantly. And in order to do that, you have to bring everyone to the table. You can't close the door and say that we don't want to hear from people who don't talk our language. All languages are our language because the language of inclusion, safety is important, but also producing materials and energy that's needed for our country. But how do we do it safely? The Biden-Harris administration has invested more money into energy resilience, tax credits, wind and solar than any other administration combined. That's significant. We still aren't there. We still have a lot of work to do, but we're moving in the right direction. And so where we have to go now is we have to move beyond this notion that we can't work together. I believe we can if we start with the proper premise, and that is nothing survives without healthy human beings.
Do you think you have agreement on that premise right now?
I don't know. Depends on which room I'm in. See, the advantage I have is I say the same thing in every room, regardless of what room I'm in. I don't have a message for room A and a different message for room B and a different message for room C. I say the same thing everywhere I go. We have to coexist, but we coexist by beginning with safe, clean opportunities for people to live, to breathe, to have the audacity to want to walk out of their homes and be able to breathe clean air. Why is that so challenging? I understand we use the materials that are made, and they're essential. I understand our place as a global leader. I understand our strategic reserve of oil and gas. I understand all that. Let's do it better. Let's do it cleaner. Let's take advantage of the new ways to produce, utilizing our natural resources, utilizing the Gulf, utilizing wind and solar. Billions, hundreds of billions of dollars to our country. And Louisiana has been the beneficiary of a lot of that money, from the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice to all of the plethora of organizations out there. We recently did a partnership with Entergy to make sure that we're working on resiliency, hardening our grid, making sure that it's safer so when storms come, We aren't doing the same thing over and over again. And what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. We got to do something different. We've got to invest on both sides, industry and community, to make sure industry is incentivized to do the right thing and to continue with research and development to do it cleaner, greener, and safer. We've got to listen to the community because they are the greatest stakeholders and not put them in the back room, but bring them to the front room and sit down and talk about where we are. How do we get here? It doesn't have to be this clashing of the titans, but it gets to be that way if people are not invited to the table. Naturally, what happens is there's a degree of mistrust. There's a degree of faith lost, and we can do better. So you ask, how does that fit in rooms? I don't know. Some days are better, some days not so good, but I'm consistent and I don't lie, and I'm going to tell people not necessarily what you want to hear, but what needs to be said and what needs to be done. And I'm very proud of the Biden-Harris administration, not only for the money that they've invested, but also our administrator, Michael Regan, who's been in Louisiana probably more times than we've ever had an EPA administrator on the ground in Louisiana, to meet with industry, to meet with individuals, to meet with communities. And at the end of the day, coexistence becomes the continued order of the day, with coexistence being every step that we make, every dollar that's spent on research and development, every avenue that's there for tax credit, for an opportunity for new industry to convert to cleaner, greener energy. I was just out with christened a boat, participated in christening a boat, the Edison Schwest, a multi-billion-dollar vessel that its sole purpose is to supply and service wind, and that's where we need to go. We have, Louisiana is strategically placed. We have oil platforms that are perfectly situated. We've got the infrastructure in place to convert them to wind and solar. So we've got to take advantage of that, and one doesn't necessarily have to deplete or kill the other. One should make the other better. And when the other's better, the community's better.
You use the word trust in there. I want to dig into that just a tiny bit. There's, the region just south of us, Cancer Alley. How do we, just invoking the community trust issues that we've seen develop there, how do we make sure that clean energy is clean, is doing what it says industry is saying it's doing? How are we holding people accountable for that? As
a regulator, as a legislator, as a policymaker,
all of the above.
You reward when you're good and you punish when you're bad. I mean, listen, it worked in my household. There were 6 of us, When we were good, we got good things. When we're bad, we got bad things. And I think we don't have to keep recreating the wheel. We've got a formula that works. Here are the rules. Here are the guidelines. Here are the EPA standards. Here's what should happen. And when you work within them, then everything is good. And we keep tweaking it because yesterday is just that. We're learning new things, new science comes on, new issues. So we have to constantly stay adroit with the current things that's happening in our atmosphere, in our labs, with our activists, with people who study this, who do this all the time, on both sides of the ledger. And we've got to continue to communicate. And when you don't, then there has to be swift penalties to it. You cannot have a business decide that we're going to factor fines in as a cost of doing business, so they don't matter. No, that means the fine's not stiff enough. If you factor it in, you've seen the UPS trucks, they go and they make deliveries, and they get parking tickets. They say that's the cost of doing business. So what, I park in front of a fire hydrant? So what, I park in front of a handicap spot? So what, I'll block traffic? I'm delivering my packages on time. No, you don't do that because you are still impacting other businesses, other people, other individuals. So your paradigm and your formula cannot factor in pollution. You can't factor in deaths and harmful emissions. So people that don't do right should be punished swiftly and solidly so as to deter and discourage them from violating. And those who do well, we should embrace, thank them, recognize them as a community partner. It's really not that difficult. Spoil the child, spare the rod, spoil the child.
I don't know about all that.
Well, not suggesting it either, but just remembering an old saying.
Sure. Yeah. You mentioned the Biden administration and the federal dollars and attention we've seen in Louisiana. We've actually talked quite a bit about some of the federal money today with our other speakers that we've seen come to the state. How are you thinking about how that might change if leadership in D.C. changes in the next, give it a year?
I'm fearful, as everyone should be, regardless of which party you may be a part of. I'm a proud Democrat. I make no apologies for it. But I do understand the importance of working together, Republicans, Democrats, and others. And I don't think that life, energy, environmental justice, the production of oil and gas, wind, solar, should be over-politicized by a party. These are people's lives. And the Biden-Harris administration has made a point of making this center. And they put their money, and this Congress has put their money where their mouths are. Not just rhetoric, but real hard dollars in the bees, billions of dollars on the ground in Louisiana for EV charging batteries, for wind and solar, for air monitoring and research and development. We can't lose that. Listen, we've made ground, but we're still way behind. We're not where we need to be. We're better than we used to be. And we cannot stop this forward momentum. And people should recognize that, again, Republican, Democrats, or other. They should recognize that when people spout policy and suggest that global warming is a hoax, that it isn't real, pick up the obits, attend a funeral, go to the community, boots on the ground, talk to the people who are impacted. It is real. Now, you can call it what you want. You don't want to call it global warming? Okay, call it something else. The world's different than it used to be. And much of what's different is caused by humans. We have one earth. We have one world. We have to share it. And the better stewardship we show, the longer it lasts. For my children and my children's children and their children. That's good for business, not just for neighbors, but also for industry.
Congressman, we've got just a minute left, so I want to ask you while I have you. The redistricting map situation we're seeing continue in federal court. How would you like to see that end?
I'd like to see it end with a reflection of the state's growth. We have reapportionment every 10 years through our census, and it is intended by law to take into account the ebbs and flows of population shifts. And the population shifts are what they are. It's just math, as I've always said. Math is math. And the maps should reflect what Louisiana has. If African Americans represent roughly 1/3 of the state, and we have 6 members of Congress, basic math. Now, when that reflection takes place, it doesn't say Republican or Democrat. It says people, and it doesn't say that you shall, you must. Remember, it doesn't say you shall, you must. You can vote for whoever you want. But the map should always reflect the demographics of the people that live in the state of Louisiana. So what I have said all along is I hope the courts get it right through this process we're going through. I hope the legislature, because in this perfect scenario, the legislature should be the ones to draw the maps that reflect what Louisiana really looks like. Apparently they did. The courts, in their judicial right, deemed it to be unconstitutional. They deemed the last map to be unconstitutional. So now There are people that do this for a living. There are demographers and map makers and statisticians and people who do this for a living. Maybe we should take the politics out and sit down and just do the math. And when the math is done, I'm confident that we will have an additional seat that's drawn that will give the opportunity for minorities to choose someone reflective of the math as it is. Math is math, and it's time that we go back, as I mentioned, how the elementary nature of energy. Take care of the people that take care of you. Same thing. Math is math. It's pretty clear. Follow the science.
Well, we're racing against the clock on the maps. We're racing against the clock here. Thank you so much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. Thank you so much. Absolutely.